Before we get started, I want to highlight one of the cooler features Schaeffer's has been working on in recent memory. Playbook of the Week. If you've ever wanted to interact with a trader, this is right up your alley. Delivered every Monday, POTW is an exclusive 30 to 45 minute live panel featuring a trading expert's take on the current market in hot sectors, primer on how to use Schaeffer's proprietary trading analysis, a deep dive into a stock at the top of our watch list for the week, and a complete question and answer session. Full disclosure, I have listened to this every morning, and not just in the interest of making money, but just to get a feel for the week ahead. I'm a big planner, big mapper outer, if you will, and if you're like me, this session is perfect for you. Plus, the Q&A portion means you can get a second opinion on any positions you might have. Quick example of how useful this has been. Last week, senior market strategist Brian Sapp, in his short-term bullish watch list, called out aluminum stock Alcoa, ticker AA. AA was a potential winner after aluminum was left off sanctions against Russia. Sure enough, AA made a double-digit move last week. There are 3 ways to get the Vimeo link. Dial 1-800-448-2080, or hit the link in this episode's bio, or visit schaeffersresearch.com for more information. Now, let's get to Katie and Emma. All right, welcome back to Schaeffer's Market Mashup. It's an episode that some would say is years in the making. I'm thrilled to be joined in person by Emma Duncan, co-managing editor here at Schaeffer's, and the legend herself, Katie Schaeffer, COO of Schaeffer's Investment Research. How is everybody?
I'm very excited that Emma's in the office. She came all the way from California just to sit down with us.
Yeah, she told me that over the weekend. It's like, you realize why I'm here, right? and it put some pressure on. So, no.
Anything for the podcast.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you guys are here. This is a conversation I've been excited to have for a long time now. You've heard of talk in this space a lot about investing, options trading, strategy as it pertains to retail traders. This is going to be a little bit different. It's a very much needed dialogue, I think, about gender in the investing world and the dynamics of stock market stigmas. Having gotten to know both of you over nearly going on 5 years here in April, I think both of you bring incredibly fresh perspectives. That's very necessary in today's world. So before we dive all into it, let's get some background on both of you. Just how you got to here and some important steps along the way. Emma, you go first.
So I started working here about a month after Patrick in May of 2017, right out of college. It was fresh. And I started off as an assistant editor and slowly just made my way up the ladder and have learned a lot along the way. And Schaeffer's has changed a lot, and we've all changed a lot, but I think we're in a really great place now, and I'm excited to be here.
All right, this is Katie. I started at Schaeffer's also as an assistant, just assistant to the CEO, my dad, Bernie Schaeffer. When I got started, I had a lot of just ideas from college. I wanted to apply everything that I learned in college. That's how I thought everything worked. You learn it in college, then you apply it in business, then you make the money. That's just how things work.
1, 2, and 3.
And after I got started and I saw the processes required to implement new ideas and kind of learned how everything had come to be, it really adjusted the way that I understood how business worked. And so I was an intern here for all of college. I basically interned in every department that we have, and that was not true work because I would only do it if I could get Fridays off to go to the pool.
Very fair.
So that was very much not my career. But when I graduated from college, this is where I wanted to be. My dad has always been an inspiration to me, and with what he's built and how hard he worked to build it. options trading really wasn't that popular when he started. He kind of like went all in on options trading, and that's not just like professionally. I'm talking our family was like all in on options trading when I was about 3 years old. It's kind of always just been ingrained in me, and, went from his assistant to, I ran our business development team, which was just like kind of our business to business, like partnerships and stuff like that. Then I moved into managing our internal sales team and customer experience team. And now here I am running all of it, all of the different departments. So that's kind of how I got here. And it was really just like a progression of where I was learning and where I could apply what I'd learned and, push myself out of my comfort zone repeatedly.
Yeah, I think that's the case for both of you. You guys have risen quickly through these ranks. I mean, Emma and I started at the same level, and then due to, a shakeup above us in 3 years, we found ourselves, having to hire our own people.
Yeah.
And then basically reshape the department how we see it. Emma, you can go first here again. Along this kind of climb up the corporate ladder, I hate that jargon, but it is true. I mean, it is a corporate ladder. Yeah. What are some of the challenges you both have faced?
I think definitely in being a female and then also being in a niche like finance and options trading, there was a huge learning curve when I started because I did not know anything about the finance industry or stocks or Wall Street or anything like that when I started. I just knew how to write. And so I had a big learning curve. It took me about a year to be confident enough to keep getting better and just improve myself in my work. And then I think after that, once I became more of like a manager and more in charge of other people, that comes with its own set of challenges and cross-department working with other women and men in the workplace and just kind of figuring out how to balance everything while also covering the needs of like your employees so that we can all work together and stay as happy as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think like especially for you guys, for Patrick and Emma, you guys were pushed into a position that was outside of your comfort zone. Like you had just been kind of writing and editing, doing your own thing, like had somebody who kind of oversaw everything. And then we put you guys in charge of the entire team, and you guys really like took the ball and ran with it. And it wasn't about like having one female and one male that were in the department. That had nothing to do with it. It had everything to do with like the way you guys worked together and the way together you could find a team that you could really build and keep not just happy, but like motivated and like involved and, growing their interest in the stock market, which we're in Cincinnati. Like this is not stock market central. Like it is, everybody's into the stock market now, but 5 years ago, there were like you worked at Fidelity or you worked here, and there were like a few other small like investing boutique type places. But if you were interested in investing, like you went to New York, you went to Chicago, you didn't stay here. So we've been really lucky that we've been able to train people here in all areas, but we're talking about content right now, on learning investing and finding compelling ways to, to share our analysis, and kind of share what our analysts are saying in a way that retail traders can understand it.
Yeah, it's been a exciting, kind of, I think, transition in the past 3 years, because we are essentially operating, I think, with a blank slate. Once you would say the pandemic hit and everybody just, dove headfirst into the stock market, I remember talking to Katie and be like, we could literally do anything. We could go into video, we can do, confessionals, I mean, everything. And we have started to implement a lot of that stuff. But I think the first step there was to have a team in place, at least on the digital side, that was equally as ambitious, equally as organized. And, Emma deserves a lot of credit, I think, for kind of, having the same, vision. And, there was zero pushback at all. And I think that's so important in a workplace environment, that there is, this kind of give and take that's not personal, that's not, kind of ego driven. I mean, it's exciting, I think, to be in that kind of situation. So Katie, you can take this one first. Having been around in options trading in the stock market much, much longer than us.
I am not that much older than you.
True.
So much longer.
Like so
decades.
For the record,
decades
listeners,
decades.
she is roughly my age.
Roughly.
but like so much longer here.
But she's much more.
But your whole family was into it, and
I was raised on options.
That's a hilarious. It's great how that worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, how are some ways that you have seen the stigma fought that the stock market is dominated by men and the testosterone driven environment? What have you seen change in the last 5 to 10 years?
When I first started and went through like all of that training that we do here at Schaeffer's about like what are options, what's the stock market, like what are, in all of our like internal education programs, we used to have a book that was literally called Women in Investing, and it compared investing to shopping. And I thought, and this was like before anybody wanted to say anything about women in investing, and there really weren't that many women who invested. And I was like, that is so offensive because there's more things that women understand than just shopping. But so I remember that like as part, like one of the first things I learned, I was just like, wow, there's investing, and then there's investing for women, and it is different. But I think that just in general, like, Wall Street just completely dominated by men. And when I did the partnership stuff earlier in my career, I would go to New York and I would just be in rooms full of just like seasoned men. Like they have been in the industry for a really long time. They'd seen it all. And I was just like this like 20 something, like with the right last name to get their attention, but not like, I still like show up and they're like, wow, she's like a teenager and she's like asking us, she's like coming with these ideas. And it was like very difficult to be taken seriously. Then, I mean, like there were a few great people that I met that didn't make me feel like I wasn't being taken seriously, but I would say like the majority of people were like, just kind of, brush it off. Like, oh, it was nice to meet with her. Like, can you bring Bernie back in at some point? Let's bring this conversation around. Or they'd ask for my dad to be part of the meetings and stuff. And it didn't really like, at the time, rub me the wrong way because I was just like, I don't know. I'm still new. So I kind of just associated it with being new. And it could have been totally associated. Like, that could have been why they were like, right, I know, right? Emma rolls her eyes. Yeah. It's not, but I think that essentially, like, for real Wall Street, like, going down on Wall Street, like, there are still, like, the restaurants that they go to are all men. And, like, you have to get, like, a special exception for women to go with you. You have to basically be with a man who was, like, a member there. And, like, women can't be members. So, I still remember that kind of stuff at the beginning. But, like, here, our traders have, like, trying to remember, we have had like 1 or 2 of our traders who were women. So it's just like, it kind of builds on that stereotype that like men are the people who manage money, men are the people who invest, men are the analytical ones, all those stereotypes kind of get reinforced throughout. And like, my dad is like the best trader that I know, and man, analytical. Like, it's like the stereotypes are very cyclical. It's like there are men there who are doing the analysis and are doing the trading and are doing well. And then you're like, there's not any women there. And there's, you don't even know that you have a stereotype that just men are in finance. Over the years, not just with like COVID, I've definitely seen like a big increase in our customer base of women who are looking to take control of their finances. And it's not just like single women who like are like, either widows or divorced and trying to like recoup whatever's going on with their finances. Like, it's women who are just like actively, like, married or not, they want to take control of their investments. They want to understand what options trading can do for their portfolio. And it's very refreshing. It's still not the percentage you'd like to see. but like there are a lot of sites like Elvest, and there's a bunch of news or magazines too that are just dedicated to highlighting people in women in finance who have moved the needle, because they need that highlight, because everything is about the men that move the needle. And so like those highlights of women in finance are just so important.
Yeah, I completely echo and agree with that. I think even I've struggled sometimes to learn when to push back. And, I feel lucky here to have like a female in charge, but most women probably don't have that. And so I can't imagine not having like another woman who's above all the other men to like have my back, because otherwise I probably wouldn't take as many risks or push as much. But I've definitely learned to kind of stand my ground and hold my own, because most of the traders here, all of them that we have now are men, and a lot of them are great though, and so that's what matters. Is it also matters how it's the men who have to kind of step up a lot and be like, hey, like that's great, like sure, of course, like, and be really aware of how you're treating your coworkers, especially the women, and make sure that everything's equal, because it's just genuinely not, and I think they can get really used to that, and it's just how it's been for a long time, so it's a lot of work to break that.
Yeah, I mean, stigma. Breaking stereotypes that you didn't even create is very difficult, because it's not just like everyone is like is sexist in everyone is sexist in general. And on average, but it's just built in to society, so it's not just like here, like our little bubble at Schaeffer's. We're really lucky because there are a lot of strong women that work here, and there's a lot of men who are comfortable working with strong women and are comfortable with a woman voicing the same kind of feedback or pushback or ideas as men. Like, there's no difference. And like Patrick's a great example of that, because there's definitely people, not at Schaeffer's, but there's definitely people out there who hear something from a woman and hear the same thing from a man and are much more on board with the man saying it, just because stereotypes. So I feel like that's something that is just like it's a road that you have to keep stepping up. It's not something that you can just change here, even though I feel like we've done a really good job. We have strong female managers and we have strong male managers, and everyone knows how to coexist and not treat each other differently. Or if you push back on something, just call somebody curse.
Oh yeah.
Just call somebody like a bitch, or call somebody like rude, or I can't believe she feels like she could talk to me like that. I'm glad that we can, like, if there was ever anybody who said something like that or felt like that, like, I feel like our team, the majority of our team knows that that's not okay, and it gets addressed right away. It's not like a lingering issue where you just feel like every time you bring up a concern, someone's going to be like, ugh, what a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a climb we have to make together, and so it takes equal effort from men and women to kind of coexist.
From a personal perspective, I can attribute a lot of my background in, comfort level with this with my mom. My mom is been in politics for 24. She's won 17 straight elections. She has had to deal with that on the public level. Badass in that sense. And so I grew up seeing this. However, not everybody has that background like me. So for anyone that doesn't, there are so many walls to break down. And I think both of you touched on something of, one, accountability, and two, just kind of visibility. Both of those nonstop. L-Invest, right? Is that it? L-Invest. And then as far as like the more of that becomes prevalent and mainstream, it's going to help the narrative change quicker than just kind of like a natural progression. It'll push it forward. Emma, I want to go back to you here, because I appreciate this. I did not come from a finance background at all. The classic story is did I fail it? Wait. Yeah, I did have to. I did. Yeah. No, I failed microeconomics.
I failed it.
I failed microeconomics my sophomore year. I retook it and got a B minus. And I know you're an English major at UC, correct?
I did communications and professional writing.
Okay.
So basically.
Okay. So what challenges did you have in adjusting to that, completely new ecosystem?
Yeah, it was a huge adjustment. I think when I started, I was just so eager to get a job, honestly, anywhere out of college as a writer. I thought that would just be the coolest thing. And Schaeffer's was one of the places I got an interview at. And I remember in my interview talking to our former boss and being like, I don't know anything about finance. Like, why am I here? And she was like, don't worry. And so the learning curve for that was just so immense. You can't even explain it to anyone that hasn't done it. Like, it literally takes the full year minimum. And then we're still learning. We're going into year 5. Like, we're still learning stuff. And I have no finance, formal education, but now my old boss used to joke that it was like we have a finance degree by the time that first year is over, because you've learned a completely new language almost and jargon. And then coming from my communications and professional writing background, I had to kind of retrain myself of how to write more concise and cut things short and really just lose all of that stuff that you teach yourself in college to reach word counts and do all this other random crap that doesn't really matter. And so it was just a lot of scaling back, getting more simple, and helping other people be able to read and digest what we were trying to relay from the traders and our analysts. And so it was definitely a lot of work, but now it's just second nature. So it just takes a lot of repetition.
And I honestly feel like after the first year, not only do you guys learn about the market and learn about how stocks work and how we analyze things, but you also get to the level where you can teach other people about it. And that is an entirely different level of education and understanding. It's not just can you tell me what a call and a put is? Can you define this indicator? It's explain it. Why does this indicator matter? Why would someone trade call, or why would someone buy calls in this situation? It is an immense training that happens over, it sounds like, oh, you had a year to do it. That's fine. You were also working during that year and writing. Yeah. It's not like you were just taking courses and learning how to do it.
Yeah. So that's how we learned. It was through working. And that's honestly how I learned, is by doing it, physically doing whatever I'm being taught.
Well, right now, if you get a comp from a trader, it probably takes you 30 seconds to 2 minutes to see it and identify what it is, understand it, clean anything up that might be wrong. Look at a chart and say okay, this, and this is what, identify support, resistance, done. To think that 2022, us is doing that as opposed to 2017, shows how far we've come. And I think that's because of the environment we're given here, where, at the same time, it's high pressure, there are deadlines and stuff, but there is an open learning curve. And I think that comes from, Katie's background, with your dad and everything. So if you wanted to expand on that a little bit, how you joined an industry that he essentially founded.
So when I joined it, the funny thing is I didn't even understand it was an industry. I just was stock market. That was it. I didn't understand how niche our company was until I really started working here. We would go to money shows and other speaking engagements. And these people would just follow my dad around and begging him to talk to him. And I was just so thrown off because I had that father-daughter, I idolized him. I thought he was the smartest man in the world. And, he's amazing. He created this entire company. He runs every single aspect of it. That's my mindset. And then we get to these money shows and he's doing the keynote speech in front of thousands of people. People are following. The following part was the craziest thing in the world. I felt like he needed security, and all he had was me. And I'm just so blown away by how much people valued his just like market outlook. Like it wasn't even specific to options trading. So like wrapping my head around the power of our brand was probably one of the like most important parts of growing and developing and being able to create an environment where people can collaborate and create and like build even greater ideas. And like you said that I created the environment. I didn't. You guys also could contribute to that environment. Each manager that I have adds to that environment with their ideas and ways of pushing the market forward. The market has changed so much in just the last year. I mean, 2 years, like COVID, everything has just like shifted significantly, and that impacts everybody differently. Like traders, obviously, they have to readjust how they're looking at the market. There's like a million new indicators and funds and stuff like that for people to use to measure what's going on in the market. You know, from a writing perspective and from our like the free content that we post on the website and our newsletters, it's like when did we start incorporating stuff about Bitcoin? Like at first it was like, okay, everyone's obsessed with it, but no one knows anything about it. And then we're like, okay, our like investors are actually taking money that they used to invest in the stock market and put it in cryptocurrency, and we need to figure that out and make sure our audience is informed, because like we need to like stay on top of that concept that the best traders are educated traders, and no one should be trading without education. And we kind of stepped out of just options trading. We like included information on cryptocurrency. We talked about the rise of Bitcoin and how that impacts and correlates with the market. Like the market's constantly evolving, and being able to constantly evolve with it. You know, I learned that from my dad. He was always kind of like, you know, making moves constantly. It always seemed like he was making moves before anything happened. And then I'd be like, why is he making that move? And then the thing would happen, and I'd be like, oh. But, you know, it's still like that now. Like when the Robinhood traders started, I still remember we like had a meeting, like maybe like mid-summer of COVID, the first year of COVID back in 2022, and he was telling me how, you know, Tesla weekly options traders were like tracking, they were always buying the cheapest option. They weren't buying like, they were just going Tesla weeklies, buying the cheapest option on the options chain, and it was like creating this opportunity for him to basically trade against it. And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I was like, you know, I got the like gist of what he was saying, but I was like, why is that so important? And like, sounds like a very specific opportunity. But like, it was essentially like, this is how meme stocks are going to start evolving. And, you know, he still has that, you know, feel for the market. And I still learn a lot from him every day. It's not like I just like was gifted the running the company, and now I don't need him at all. And I like look to him, and I look to my managers for a lot of my ideas and a lot of like the direction that the company's going.
I mean, look at the Meta platforms, but from January.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Crazy.
Unreal. Like when Facebook first tanked there, it was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like we nailed that. I wanted that like plastered over everything.
It's crazy.
And you know, there was a united effort of like, get this out everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very unique environment where, you know, like Bernie, you know, gets that done, but then everything else was just moving like a fine-tuned machine.
To we like made sure our customers understood like how he did that. It's not like he like predicted that the market that Meta was going to crash, or he didn't necessarily predict what was going to happen with earnings, like whether it was going to be good or bad. He predicted that it was not going to be a good reaction regardless. And like trading earnings is an art form. I don't even know if you call it like science anymore. Like earnings is gut feeling along with like, you know, the technical sentiment, fundamental, all that stuff. But it is swinging for the fences. And
you have to be willing to take some serious hits.
Absolutely.
You know, looking at something like DraftKings now recently that just got torched.
Yeah.
So a more specific question, I think, and Emma can go first here. Who have you looked up to as a role model, whether personal or just kind of in life in general, as you've acclimated to this role and going forward?
I definitely was super lucky. I grew up with two moms who are very pro higher education, very pro career, and also very pro being able to have it all. You could be a mom, you can have a marriage or a relationship, a partnership, and then you can also be educated and keep up with your career and work really hard. And obviously there were always sacrifices that they had to make. But I remember being 12 and watching my mom go back to school to get a double master's degree. And she became a professor. And for a long time, she was in school with my older brothers and was a single mom. So she just always had a hustle about her. And then she also always pushed me. Once I realized I wanted to do writing, even in middle school, she would always help me improve. And of course, at the time, I hated her for it. And I was like, oh, I don't want to keep redoing this. But I'm so grateful, because then by the time I got to college, I was so much better at even just doing my papers and things like that. And then the drive of that and being able to just be a woman and be a director or be these large roles, because I got to see that firsthand. I was always expected to go to college and get a higher education and work my ass off and go, because that's what we do. There's no other option for that. So yeah, definitely my mom's. I was very, very lucky with that.
So I would say that both my parents were my biggest role models. My dad, from just that, the way that he just hustled, and the way he'll put everything into his decisions, he'll trust his gut and he will just move forward. He will I think he's an agent of his own change. He is going to make the change happen. If something's not working, he's going to change it. If something is working, he is going to blow it out. And he spent all of my childhood, which I could be wow, my dad was always gone. But, back 30 years ago, you couldn't promote your company or promote yourself as a real analyst without going to New York all the time. So he spent, honestly, he spent 2 weeks every month in New York.
Wow.
It was constant, because he was always hustling, going to New York Times, USA Today, CNBC, Fox Business, whatever else was around back then. Yeah. He was constantly and he couldn't do it remote. So everything he did was constantly, he worked his ass off for this company, and I got to witness it firsthand. And I didn't completely understand everything going on, but I saw somebody who decided what they wanted to do and went after it with everything. And so that's always been kind of the hustle behind me, is you can't under hustle him, because he did all this to build this brand, and you got to hustle, and you got to find people who are going to hustle and get this stuff done and make sure that we stay in a position where we are the best options trading newsletter. We are the best with educating options traders. We provide the best options commentary on our site. You have to, when somebody instills in you that they decide they're the best and then they go get it, that's just kind of something that you decide. On the other side, my mom was always just kind of she would support everything that I did. She, with her, again, all in. Both of my parents were just kind of all in. I went to college for psychology, and she was all in behind that, but trying to find ways to take my fascination with serial killers and sociopaths and all that I just have had forever, and kind of convert that into something that we could actually use outside of college, instead of just graduating with a weird psychology degree with no intention of being a therapist or a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. So we would focus, she would push me to take social psychology, organizational psychology, things like that, how to work together with other people, how to change the environment to make people more productive, and things like that, where you're manipulating things socially to help people become better versions of themselves, thus helps the company become better versions of itself. Kind of how I just it's just the hustle and all in, and
and the push.
That.
You got the front and the back, and
and it was just
those are the best parents.
Yeah. Did not like it when I was younger, though.
Exactly. That's what
very annoying. I would very much not like to have worked so hard in high school. I did not see my friends doing it. I did not
rewrite so many papers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting with my dad because my dad would always double check my homework, which I thought was like a huge invasion of my privacy. And so like I remember I would be just downstairs watching TV, and he'd be upstairs on his computer. Keep in mind, this is his free time that he's doing. He's checking his son's homework, and he'll be like, "Yo, Patrick, come up here."
Oh God.
I'm like, "Oh shit, I screwed something up." And like you guys both said, like you hated it, but they kind of like dragged you kicking and screaming into this kind of mindset, this grind, hustle mindset. And you can see it up and down this company. This is who Emma and I tried to hire, beneath us. And I think, and 4 out of 6 are women, in our department.
Yes.
You kind of look past that kind of stuff, and it's something that I think we're proud of. Is that like, we're not sitting here saying, oh, we have 4 out of 6 that are women. It's like we have 6 finders and hustlers.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important in a company. Especially as it pertains to finance.
Yeah, we weren't trying to meet quotas. Like,
exactly.
There's nothing in our, when we go through hiring, I don't want to say that we do blind hiring, because honestly, I just don't even know what technology is required to do that. But I would say that, like, when we look at kind of our applicants that come through and the kinds of people that we're interviewing, like, you can't tell that you can see a higher interest in anything stock market related from men, but like you can see women that come through that are just as qualified, and we don't hesitate to interview them because they're women or because whatever, anything like that.
We have a study here that Katie sent us.
That was like I read the article last year and I was like, oh, my psychology degree finally makes sense.
Well, first of all, it chalks up like men trading too much due to testosterone, which makes like perfect sense.
That's so simplified, right? Yeah. Like anybody can understand that. Like everyone knows hormones. Everyone knows that men have more testosterone than women, and everyone knows like in general what testosterone means. But when you apply it to investing, it's not what you want. It's not like a benefit.
Right. This is a little off the script here, but I was thinking of it last week. When you see someone like Kathy Wood in the ARK investing, I think she gets sometimes unfairly like shit on.
Absolutely.
For like everyone like, oh, great job with growth stocks. And I'm like, would you really be saying that if it was like a Warren Buffett growth fund?
It'd be a praise.
I'd love a study on like the kinds of headlines that they use with Kathy Wood compared to like other major money managers, because it's always like she is just making like, she's so aggressive and she's just like so definitive, and it's like, that's valued in men.
Yeah. Being
aggressive and making decisions like concretely and being like, this is the direction that we're going, that's valued.
And on the other side of the coin, how many articles have you read of Warren Buffett of like, he's so patient? If that was flipped, he ain't getting that kind of attention. It would be like, he's just sitting there, on his hands. He's not doing anything.
Yeah, he's scared.
Yeah, he's scared. Exactly. So that kind of pivots into kind of the last question, which is, kind of a 2-parter. Feel free how you guys want to split this up, but equality and equity in the workplace, where do you see that going next? And then more specifically, my mom's going to love that I asked this question, because it's like, the kind of the nasty woman stigma.
She used it in her political campaign.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. She's been called every name under the sun by people like face to face, like during meetings and hearings. How do you kind of untether that stigma with like saying like aggressive and espouse while still being aggressive and assertive? It's such a difficult question to ask. I think honestly, I just need to hand it over to you and let you guys take it from there.
I think it's a delicate balance, and honestly, it's also a balance that you will never achieve, because as a woman, you're always going to end up pissing someone off, and you're always going to end up being too emotional or too pushy or blah, blah, blah. Like, honestly, like at this point, I proudly call myself a nasty woman. Like, I have the t-shirt that says it, and I've marched around for the Women's March, and I just think it's important to embrace it. Like, you can call whatever names you want to call us. We've already been called it before. And I'm just going to embrace that and continue to like move higher and just do what's best for me. And if it makes you uncomfortable, then that's something you have to look inward towards. And I think a lot of it, though, the hardest part to admit, and then because you also have to be kind of humble and realize that, as assertive as I want to be, I also realize that a lot of my success also comes from men who have backed me up and men who have spoken up for me, because otherwise I wouldn't have been heard, which is just the sad truth. And so it's a lot in the ballpark for men to do that, which is why Patrick and I work really well together. If we had opposing views on that, there's no way I would be where I am and like we would just be butting heads all the time. It just like wouldn't work. So if you can't see it equally, and it's the same with like equal pay and things like that. I can't know if I'm making the same if the men aren't honest about what they're making. So we need to remove the stigma for talking about salaries in our workplaces. And we need the support of other men, to do that for us, or else we can't, because they're the ones who rule the roost, societal wise,
and stereotype wise,
all from what has been just ingrained in us. Mm-hmm. And, so we just need to work together.
Mm-hmm. So I would say that like my dad's method of management has always been decisive, and he just like makes the decision, doesn't like, he was never like somebody who would, like poll everyone and be like, is this like, what do you guys think? Like, is this a good decision? Yeah. Like, are we all on the same page? And, he just like made the decision. His gut instincts were right. If they weren't, like, we just tossed it. Like, it was just very much like, and that was kind of like my role model growing up, was somebody who was just like authoritative, I don't want to say top down because that has a negative connotation, but like he made the decisions. It was like his livelihood depended on it. It was like, that was how it was. And, my sister and I were talking the other day, because she is a plastic surgeon. She's graduating from her plastic surgery residency at UVA, which is, plastic surgery is a very male-dominated, any kind of specialty. Mm-hmm. Surgery is very male-dominated, so she hits roadblocks all the time for being a mom and, all that stuff. Aside from that, though, she was listening to a podcast, I think, and they said, and the like general line was, with more authority, you have to have more vulnerability. And I think that's really true for men and women, that like when you have power to make change, if you don't ask other people what they think and you just manage from the top down, that gives men or women, that gives people the feeling that like you're the one making the decisions. They're not invested in it. If it fails, it's really not like, you maybe like didn't do your job well, but like you're not invested in that decision. And I think especially for women, they need to stop being like looked down upon because they want to get everyone's opinion first. Mm-hmm. Because getting other people's feedback kind of allows you to be vulnerable, to say like, I don't have all the answers. Like, yeah. And that's okay, because I have this great team who will like help me come up with the right answer with all of these different perspectives. And I think that's the hardest thing, is that like everyone needs to do that, not just women. Mm-hmm. Men need to do that too. The idea that like being the only person who knows all the answers, like that idea is dead. Mm-hmm. You have to be somebody who's open to being like, I don't have all the answers, but I am confident in my team to come up with those answers. And without that, like, and like I tried to be just like my dad when I first took over the COO role, and it just didn't fit for me. Mm-hmm. It was, I tried to be just like, I make the decisions, tell people what to do. This is what's going down. Get on board or get out. And that's just that. Like, never felt good to me. I never felt like I got the best out of people. And then I would kind of go back to like who I actually was, and then people would be like, which Katie am I getting today? And I found that, like, leadership with vulnerability is really the only way to lead in a way that your team's behind you and you get the best people. Because even, like, we're in a small business, like, once you get to the top and and even not at the top, you have people underneath you, like, you need people bought in, and you want people bought in because that makes your team better. Like, if you have a bunch of people who are just going through the missions, like, that sucks. No one's having fun. No. We're not getting the best content. We're not getting the best, like, we're not doing the best for our customers. If you have a team that's, like, bought in, their voices are heard, even if you don't use all of their ideas, like, they're heard, kind of, like, where their ideas are going. You can kind of steer them into, like, more productive ideas or, like launch off of their ideas. That's so important. And, like, I don't think it's appropriate for if a woman wants to, if somebody's does something wrong and a woman points it out, like, being called a nasty woman is ridiculous because the thing was wrong. You pointed it out. There's no reason for that to have anything to do with my gender. Yeah. But it does. And I think that in general, female managers are more likely to be at least attempted to be taken advantage of because they assume there's more kindness, kindness seems not the right word, compassion, empathy, support, like that supportive nature. Like, you want to help people. You don't want to see people struggling. Again, like what Emma said, we need men to also feel like that. We need men to also be supportive. We need men to support women when they make the hard decisions. Like, no one wants to have the confrontational interaction, but, like, both men and women have to do it, and they should be treated equally. And, like, the last thing I want to say is, as far as, like, equal pay, that is so important to me. And I make sure here that is, like, not without question even and equal. And it is not like I don't have two for every position, so it's hard to say, like, each position is like if you were a man, if you were a woman, but any positions that are comparable, like, you're seeing the exact same kind of comp across the board based on experience. Yep. And that was very important to me because not that everybody's just talking about comp all the time, but, like, the idea that women are paid less than men just because they're women or just because they took time off to have a child for 3-4 months and had to reintegrate into the workforce. Like, you took 3 months off. Why does that mean that you were, like, you make, what is the percentage less? It makes no sense that there's even any kind of ratio for what a woman makes versus what a man makes in that exact same role. And so we do our best here. We do what we can do to control what we can control. We support groups that, like, rally for everyone being treated equally and everyone being given the same opportunities. And, everyone has to do their part. Not just men, not just women, not just women in power, And I think it's important to have women in power and men in power because everyone needs somebody to look up to and everyone needs a resource to be able to talk to about, like, hey, like, this guy kind of, like, implied that I was, like, being, like, too aggressive and, like, all I did was say this and, like, it made me feel uncomfortable. And if you don't have anybody to say that to who's actually going to, like, hear you and, like, address the situation, it's, like, just very isolating and just, like, demoralizing. And, we can't have that here. And we're very lucky that we have female leaders and male leaders who are like, yeah, that's not going to be tolerated here. Yeah. Like, we don't do that here. Mm-hmm. You might see it outside here. It's not here. Not here.
And that's not as to say, like, oh, we're so special and amazing.
We're not perfect. We
the more of kind of this that there is, the more dialogue, the more examples, the more success stories there are. I mean, the more prevalent it can be. And then also kind of going back to what you were saying about tying together vulnerability in with empowerment, I think is so, so important. Yeah. Because it's not always just rah, 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 like, come on, team, let's do this. Like, I hate that sort of, motivation. It's useful in times, trust me. But I think, adding a sense of vulnerability to that is so, so important, regardless of gender.
And, every person doesn't get supported in the same way. And it's not just gender. Like, I have men who need the same support as women, and I have, it's not about stereotypes. It's about that person, and we're lucky that it's a small business because we know each of our employees and we know what they need. And so listening to them and hearing them and supporting them, like that's what builds a business where people are invested. And, women might be better traders. I don't know. I'll just throw
Only
that in.
time will tell.
I'll just throw that in at the end. There's a lot of articles about it. But from a psychological perspective, women are more want to know everything before they make a trade. Men are more gut instinct traders, and there's always going to be things that are different. Mm-hmm. It's not like everybody's just going to become one gender with all the same stereotypes, but appreciating what people bring to the table doesn't have to be about gender. You can just take somebody for what they bring to the table.
It's about balance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's about balance. And the last thing that I'll say, and why I'm so grateful for you guys for coming on, this is as I'm wrapping up here. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to have these kind of discussions where it's not pandering. We're kind of dissecting it and figuring it out as we're going along. And I think that's why I want this episode to be as basically unedited as possible, because it just shows us figuring it out and not some kind of we're all.
And not we don't conclude this episode and say we know what we're doing. We have all the answers. Hit us up if you need some management hacks.
Right.
We got it. Every single male and female is 100% happy all the time.
Exactly.
It's a learning process, and embracing the learning process is that's what people need to keep talking about.
Yeah,
that's
in options trading and in life and work-life balance. It's all there.
That's the key.
Yes.
It's not stereotypes. It's not women managing their should I say this? Should I remove an exclamation point? Should I add if you think this is about it's not about that. It's about everybody constantly trying to improve.
Yeah.
On and supporting each other as they try to improve, even when they make mistakes.
And if this episode opens up kind of the mind and ears of one person,
exactly,
then that's a win.
Oh, for sure.
And shit, we're damn near at an hour here, so we can cut. But we've got Emma Duncan, co-managing editor here at Schaeffer's. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And then Katie Schaeffer, COO of Schaeffer's Investment Research. I think this has been so great. And
maybe we should go to California for
yeah, actually that sounds great. I've actually never been to California.
Yeah, I think maybe just a beach side.
Yeah, part 2.
Would be great.
Part 2 by the beach. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make it happen.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
This is awesome.